Good morning, children. Hearty welcome to all of you for today's session. Are you fine, children? Okay, good. In this session, I will be explaining you the concluding part of our lesson, packing. So, before moving ahead with the textbook, let's have a summary of the portion that we learned in the last class. As we know, the narrator of the story is Jerome K. Jerome. He was proud of his packing skills. He was supposed to go on a trip with his friends George and Harris. He told them to leave the whole matter of packing to himself. Then, what about the response of his friends? They readily agreed. They immediately agreed. George sat on an easy chair and Harris cocked his legs on the table and wanted Jerome doing his packing. And they watched Jerome doing his packing. Not wanted, they watched Jerome doing his packing. So, who watched Jerome doing his packing? His friends George and Harris. What did they do, children? George sat on an easy chair and Harris cocked his legs on the table and they watched Jerome doing his packing. But this wasn't what Jerome wanted. Actually, what he wanted to do, children? Yes, when he said that he wanted to do all the packing himself, what he meant was that he was willing to be in charge of everything and direct his friends to work efficiently under his supervision. Did you get that sentence, children? So, what he actually wanted to do, Jerome K. Jerome. So, when he said that he wanted to do all the packing himself, what he meant was that he was willing to be in charge of everything and direct his friends to work efficiently under his supervision. So he was really irritated at them for just sitting about watching his work. It was uncomfortable for Jerome to sit idle and see another person work alone. His energetic nature made him want to get up and superintend. So, when Jerome packed the bag, Harris pointed out that Jerome had forgotten to pack the boots. So he had to open the bag again. He had to open the bag again and pack the boots, and just he was going to close it, he doubted whether he had packed his toothbrush. As we know, the story related to his toothbrush. So, what's the children? Whenever he would be about to travel anywhere, he would get nightmares of forgetting to pack his toothbrush. Then what he would do? Then he would wake up and go on to search for it. Then in the morning, he would pack it before he used it. And then he had to unpack again to get it and would repack, forgetting to put the toothbrush in again. Then he had to rush upstairs to fetch it from the bathroom. So he always ends up carrying the toothbrush wrapped up in his pocket handkerchief. So as usual, Jerome had to search the whole bag. He found their toothbrush, Harris and George's toothbrush, 18 times over, but he couldn't find his own. At last, he found it inside a boot and he had to repack once again. After he was done, George asked him whether the soap was in, but Jerome was so exhausted, he was so tired that he just didn't seem to hear that. But afterwards, he strapped the bag again. By that time, he had noticed that he had packed his spectacles inside and he had to open the bag once again. Finally, he finished his packing at 10:05 p.m. And now, George and Harris decided to pack the food hampers. Why, children? Because they wanted to show that they were more expert than Jerome. So George and Harris started up by showing that they were better than Jerome at packing. Jerome was so excited to see how they would proceed. As he expected, they started with breaking a cup. Then Harris squashed tomatoes by placing strawberry jam on top of it. And then he had to pick out the tomato with a teaspoon. Moreover, George stepped on the butter, and now it was Jerome's turn to sit back and watch them, which irritated them. They stepped on things, put things behind them, and they were unable to find them when they needed them. That's a condition. So they put the pie at the bottom At last, what did they do, children? They put the pie at the bottom and put heavy things on top of it, which ended up by ruining the pies. The pies, it was disturbed or it was destroyed by putting heavy things or heavier things on top of it. Hope you understood the portion that I taught you in the last class, children. Okay, now let's move on to the new portion. Let me read the first paragraph for you. They upset salt over everything. And as for the butter, I never saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did. After George had got it off his slipper, they tried to put it in the kettle. It wouldn't go in, and what was in wouldn't come out. They did scrape it out at last and put them down on a chair, and Harry sat on it, and it stuck to him, and they went looking for it all over the room. So what's going on there, children? Yes, they upset everything. George and Harris, while packing the food hamper, they upset or they overturned everything. Jerome says that they created a lot of confusion with a small piece of butter. Did you get the sentence, children? Jerome says they had created a lot of confusion with a small piece of butter. He added one more thing. He had not seen anyone create so much mess with the butter that was worth 1 or 2 pence. What do you mean by worth 1 or 2 pence, children? Worth 1 or 2 pence means, or 1 and 2 pence. 1 and 2 pence means it's a small piece of bread. It's not so costlier. So worth 1 or 2 pence means it was a very small piece. So what did they do with the butter, children? Yes, they created a lot of confusion with a small piece of butter. So Jerome says that he had not seen anyone create so much mess with the butter that was worth 1 or 2 pence, 1 or 2 pence, or 1 and 2 pence worth butter. Then George removed it from his slipper. Have you seen the sentence, children? After George had got it off his slipper, they tried to put it in the kettle. So first of all, what did he do? George removed it from his slipper and tried to put it into the kettle. So as he was unable to do that, he placed it on a chair. Then what happened to the butter, children? Harris sat on it and the butter stuck to him on his back. Then as he stood up, both of them went around the room looking for the piece of butter. I hope you understood this paragraph, children. So what's going on in that paragraph, children? They upset everything. Then Jerome says, I never saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did. So what did they do with the butter, children? They created a lot of confusion with a small piece of butter. That means he had not seen anyone create so much mess with a butter that was worth 1 and 2 pence. It's a very small piece of bread. It's a very small piece of butter. So George removed it from his slipper and tried to put it into the kettle. So as he was unable to do, what did he do with the butter? He put it down on a chair and Harris sat on it and it stuck to him. And at last they went on looking for the butter all over the room. Okay. And next one. I will take my oath. I put it down on the chair, said George, staring at the empty seat. I saw you do it myself not a minute ago, said Harris. Then they started around the room again looking for it. Then they met again in the center and started at one another. Most extraordinary thing I ever heard of, said George. So mysterious, said Harris. Then George got round at the back of Harris and saw it. Why, here it is all the time, he exclaimed indignantly. Where? Cried Harris, spinning round. Stand still, can't you? Roared George, flying after him. So at last they got it off and packed it in the teapot. Okay, children, let's see the explanation. What is going on there, children? Okay, so I will take my oath. I put it down on that chair. So George looked intently at the empty seat. George looked closely at the empty seat on which he had placed the butter a few minutes ago. Then he took an oath of truthfulness that he had placed it there not even a minute ago. Then what's the meaning of he took an oath, children. He promised. He promised that he had placed it there and not even a minute ago. So what did they do, children? Once again, George and Harry searched for it in the room. Then they met in the middle of the room, empty-handed. What do you mean by empty-handed? They didn't get the butter. Their hands were empty. Then at last George exclaimed. Have you seen the sentence, children? Yes, most extraordinary thing I ever heard of, said George. So George exclaimed that the disappearance of the butter was the most amazing thing that he had known. So George exclaimed that the disappearance of the butter was the most amazing thing, was the most surprising that he had known. Then Harris, what did he say, children? Yes, Harry said that the disappearance of the butter was a mystery. So mysterious, said Harris. It's a mystery. So what did he say? Harry said that the disappearance of the butter was a mystery. At last, George saw the butter sticking to Harry's back. Have you seen the sentence, children? Yes, then George got round at the back of Harry's and saw it. Saw it means and saw the butter. Yes, at last, George saw the butter sticking to Harry's back and said that it had been there all this while. Yes, here it is all the time. So, it was stuck onto Harry's back. Then, have you seen the word, children? Indignantly. He exclaimed indignantly. Indignantly means angrily, gnawingly. He was exhausted. He became very angry, and at last he found the butter on Harry's back. So he said something indignantly. Indignantly means angrily. Then Harris, what did he do? Harris turned round and asked where it was. Then George flew to Harry's back. George, what did he do, children? Yes, stand still, can't you? Roared George, flying after him. So, George flew to Harry's back and asked him to stand still. Why, children? Because he wanted to remove the butter from Harry's back. So, George flew to Harry's back and asked him to stand still. Then they removed the butter and at last packed it inside a teapot. Okay. So, the next paragraph. Montmorency was in it all, of course. Montmorency's ambition in life is to get in the way and be sworn at. If he can squirm in any way where he particularly is not wanted, and be a perfect nuisance, make people mad, and have things thrown at his head, then he feels his day has not been wasted. So, one more character is there, children. It's Jerome's pet dog. What's the name of Jerome's pet dog? Montmorency. So Jerome's pet dog, Montmorency, he participated in all these things. Jerome's pet dog, Montmorency, participated in all these. Then, what was his aim, children? What was his ambition in life? Montmorency's ambition in life is to get in the way and be sworn at. See the meaning, children? Be sworn at means, here in this context, be sworn at means get scolded. So, what was the ambition or what was the aim of Montmorency? Montmorency, Jerome's pet dog's name. So, his aim was to interrupt everyone. His aim was to disturb everyone and then get scolded for it. Did you get his ambition, children? He wanted to interrupt everyone and then get scolded for it. Then, Jerome added one more thing. What is it, children? Yes, if he can squirm in anywhere where he particularly is not wanted, and be a perfect nuisance and make people mad and have things thrown at his head, then he feels his day has not been wasted. So Jerome adds that if Montmorency was able to twist into a place, able to twist, what do you mean by twist, children? Able to wriggle into a place or able to squirm, that means he would participate in anything that he doesn't want. Actually, he did not want to get disturbed them. See, if he can squirm in anywhere where he particularly is not wanted and be a perfect nuisance and make people mad. So that is what is his condition, children. If Montmorency was able to twist into a place, or if Montmorency was able to wriggle into a place and create nuisance by angering the people and get things thrown at him in return. So he felt that he had utilized the day in a good way. I hope you understood this paragraph, children. See, I told you the meaning of sworn at. Sworn at means, here in this context, sworn at means get scolded. Then squirm, S-Q-U-I. See the sentence, children. If he can squirm in anywhere. So what's the meaning of squirm? To wriggle or twist one's body into that portion. So what he would do, children? He would enter that portion, or he would enter that part in any way. So what he would do? He would wriggle or he would twist his body into that part. If the door is closed, he would twist his body and try to enter into the room. Okay, so Jerome adds that if Montmorency was able to twist into a place and create nuisance by anchoring people or making them anchor and get things thrown at him in return, so he felt that he had utilized the day in a good way. See the sentence, children. If he can swarm in anywhere where he particularly is not wanted, and he became a perfect nuisance and make people mad and make people angry, and at last what people would do, children? They would have thrown things at his head. Then Montmorency feels that his day has not been wasted. So he thought that he had utilized the day in a good way. That's the condition of Jerome's pet dog, Montmorency. Then one more paragraph about Montmorency, children. See, to get somebody to stumble over him and curse him steadily for an hour is his highest aim and object. And when he has succeeded in accomplishing this, his conceit becomes quite unbearable. So I told you what was Montmorency's aim. Montmorency's aim was to get people trip over him, was to get people stumble over him and scold him. So he wanted to make the people disturb. He wanted to make the people stumble over him. What's the meaning of stumble, children? Yes, fall. See, here is the meaning of stumble, children. Fall quickly without control. So people would fall quickly without control by stepping onto him. So to get somebody to stumble over him and curse him steadily for an hour. So what they would do, children? After falling, they would scold him, they would curse him for an hour. So that is what is his highest aim and object, or his aim or his ambition in his life. Okay, so by doing this, he felt that he had fulfilled his aim and he would feel proud of his achievement. He would feel proud of his achievement. So what's the meaning of stumble, children? To trip over a hurdle. To trip over a hurdle, or to fall quickly without control. To fall without control or to trip over a hurdle. Then what do you mean by curse here? Curse here in this context, curse means scold. Then conceit, have you seen the word? His conceit becomes quite unbearable. His pride in himself. His pride in himself. He would feel proud of his achievement. So what would be his achievement, children? He wanted to make people disturb. He wanted to make people scold him. He wanted to make people stumble over him, and they would curse him or they would scold him steadily for an hour. So that is what is his highest aim and object in life, or that is what is his highest ambition in his life. I hope you understood that paragraph. Let me move on to the next paragraph, children. Yes, he came and sat down on things just when they were wanted to be packed, and he labored under the fixed belief that whenever Harris or George reached out their hand for anything, it was his cold, damp nose that they wanted. He put his leg into the jam, he worried the teaspoons, and pretended that the lemons were rats, got into the hamper and killed 3 of them before Harris could land him with a frying pan. So again the same paragraph. It's about Montmorency, the pet dog of Jerome. He came. Who came, children? Montmorency. Montmorency came and sat down on things just when they were wanted to be packed. So what he would do, children? Montmorency sat on the things to be packed. Did you get the sentence, children? Montmorency sat on the things to be packed in the food hampers. So he thought that when George and Harris reached out for the things to be packed, they were reaching out for his cold, wet nose. As you know, dog's nose, it's always wet. Okay, so he came and sat down on things just when they were wanted to be packed. And he labored under the fixed belief that whenever Harris or George reached out their hand for anything, it was his cold, damp nose that they wanted. Then what he would do, children? He put his leg into the jam and he worried the teaspoons, and worried here, have you seen the meaning of worried, children? Disturbed. He disturbed the teaspoons and he pretended that the lemons were rats. So what's going on there, children? First of all, Montmorency, what did he do? He sat on the things to be packed. Then what was his thought? He thought that when George and Harris reached out for the things to be packed, they were reaching out for his cold, wet nose and would bring it forward for them. So he stepped into the jam bottle. Who stepped into the jam bottle? Montmorency stepped into the jam bottle. He disturbed the teaspoons and he acted as if the lemons were rats. And he stepped into the hamper to kill the rats. Did you get that, children? Yes, he came and sat down on things. Then, just when they means Harris and George, when they were about to be packed, they labored under the fixed relief. Then Montmorency labored under the fixed belief that whenever Harris and George reached out their hand for anything, it was his cold damn nose that they wanted. That means what he would do if they wanted anything to be packed, what he would do, he had a fixed belief that he would move it to them with his nose, with his cold damn nose, with his wet nose. Then at last what he would do, he put his legs into the jam and he disturbed the teaspoons and he pretended that the lemons were rats. He thought that the lemons were rats. The lemons were also packed in the food hamper, and Montmorency pretended that, or Montmorency thought that the lemons were rats, and he got into the hamper and killed 3 of them before Harris could land him with the frying pan. So he decided to kill the rats before. See the sentence, children? Yes, he got into the hamper and killed 3 of them. By that time, Harris could land him with the frying pan. What did he do, children? He was stopped by Harris. What he was doing there, children? He was trying to kill the rats. So he was stopped by Harris. Montmorency was stopped by Harris. What did he do? He hit him with a frying pan. Understood? Hit him with a frying pan. See, land him. Have you seen the word? Harris could land him with the frying pan. Harris hit him with a frying pan. Did you get the word land him? Or land him means hit someone. Okay, so Harris hit Montmorency with a frying pan. Then the next paragraph, Harris said, I encouraged him. I didn't encourage him. A dog like that doesn't want any encouragement. It's the natural original sin that that is born in him, that makes him do things like that. Okay, so Jerome blamed Jerome. What did he say about Montmorency? When Harris blamed Jerome for encouraging Montmorency for all doing this mischief. So what's the opinion of Harris? Harris' opinion was that Jerome was the only person who was responsible for encouraging Montmorency for doing all this mischief. But what's the reply given by Jerome? Jerome says, a dog like Montmorency doesn't want any encouragement. A dog like Montmorency did not need any encouragement. It was born to be like that and act like that. So this is what is the condition or the response of Jerome about his pet dog. So when Harris blamed Jerome for encouraging Montmorency for doing all this mischief, Jerome says that a dog like Montmorency did not need any encouragement. It was born to be like that. It's natural. See, it's the natural original sin that is born in him that makes him do things like that. So it was born to be like that and act like that. That's the condition of Montmorency. This is what is the reply given by Jerome. Okay. Next paragraph. At last the packing was done at 12:50 and Harris sat on the big hamper and said he hoped nothing would be found broken. George said that if anything was broken, it was broken, which reflection seems to comfort him. He also said he was ready for bed and we were all ready for bed. Harris was to sleep with us that night and we went upstairs. So at last at 12:50 they had packed the hampers too. Then what did he do, children? Harris sat on the hamper and said that hopefully that nothing would break in it. Then George supported him. George was indifferent. George supported him and said, if something broke, it would not matter. It's not a problem. Then at last they were ready for bed. They went upstairs to sleep. See, here is the last slide, children. Listen. We tossed for beds and Harris had to sleep with me. He said, do you prefer the inside or outside, Jay? I said, I generally prefer to sleep inside a bed. Harry said it was odd. George said, what time shall I wake you fellows? Harry said 7. I said no, 6, because I wanted to write some letters. Harris and I had a bit of a row over it, but at last split the difference. and said 6:30. Wake up at 6:30, George, we said. So what's going on there, children? Sorry, children. So we chose 4 beds. We decided 4 beds. Harris had to sleep with me. Okay, so we chose 4 beds and Harris had to sleep with me, he said. So as they settled in their beds, Harris asked Jerome if he preferred the inside or outside of the bed. Did you see the sentence? At last, they decided to sleep. They went upstairs to sleep, and as they settled in their beds, Harris asked Jerome if he preferred the inside or outside the bed. That is what is, they wanted to share a bed. Okay, so Harris asked Jerome if he preferred the inside or the outside of the bed. So what's the reply given by Jerome? I said I generally prefer to sleep inside a bed. So Jerome said that he preferred to sleep on the inside of the bed. Then this seemed strange to Harris. Harris said it was odd. It's strange. Harris said it's strange. Okay, so George asked them, at what time should we wake up them up? At what time should he wake up them up? See here, the question is that George said. George asked, what time shall I wake you fellows? Then Harris said, 7. But I said, no, 6, because Jerome wanted to write some letters. Did you understand, children? So George asked them, at what time should he wake them up? Then Harris replied, what's the reply given by Harris? 7. But Jerome wanted to wake up at 6 because he had to write some letters. So, Harris and I had a bit of a row over it. What's the meaning of a bit of a row, children? An argument. So, Harris and Jerome had an argument over it. Why, children? Harris said he wanted to wake up at 7 and Jerome said he wanted to wake up at 6:30. What's the reason, children? 6:30 means he wanted, not 6:30, children. He wanted to wake up at 6 because he wanted to write some letters. So Harris and I had a bit of a row over it, but at last split the difference and said 6:30. Wake us at 6:30, George, we said. See, here is a word, children, a bit of a row. See the sentence? Harris and I had a bit of a row. What do you mean by a bit of a row, children? The meaning is an argument. So Harris and Jerome had an argument over it, over the time. But at last split the difference. What do you mean by split the difference? Here is the meaning, children. Split the difference. This means that they agreed on 6:30 because it was halfway between 6 and 7. Jerome wanted to wake up at 6 and Harris wanted to wake up at 7. So split the difference means they agreed on 6:30 because it was halfway between 6 and 7. So at last they agreed on 6:30 because it was halfway between 6 and 7. At last they settled on 6:30. 6:30 means 6:30. Then each accommodating his time by half an hour. George made no answer, and we found on going over that he had been asleep for some time. So we placed the bath where he could tumble into it on getting out in the morning and went to bed ourselves. So here is the last paragraph, children. What's the meaning of that sentence? George made no answer. What do you mean by that, children? Yes, George did not respond as he was asleep. After a little, George made no response, and we found on going over that he had been asleep for some time. So George did not respond after a few minutes because he was asleep. And Harris and Jerome, they made a mischief. What's this, children? Yes, he had been asleep for some time. So we placed the bath where he could tumble into it on getting out in the morning and went to bed ourselves. So Jerome and Harris, they made a mischief by placing the bathtub next to George's bed. So George was sleeping alone in a bed, and Harris and George, they shared another bed. Okay, so Jerome and Harris made a mischief by placing a bathtub or placing the bathtub very next to George's bed, so that he would fall into the tub as he woke up in the morning. Did you understand, children? What mischief they made, children? Jerome and Harris, they made a mischief by placing the bathtub next to George's bed, so that he would fall into the tub as he woke up in the morning. What's the meaning, children? Tumble. See, here is the word. See, he could tumble into it on getting out in the morning and went to bed ourselves. Tumble means fall quickly without control. So what he would do, he would fall into the tub, or he would tumble into the tub as he woke up in the morning. Then Harris and George, Harris and Jerome, not George, Harris and Jerome went to bed. So here comes an end of our story, children. I hope you understood the lesson well. Children, many of you didn't submit the notes. Today I'll display the names of the children. Yes, that children should submit the notes today itself. Okay children, have a nice day. Thank you for watching.